All right, Cyber Traders, welcome on back here this Wednesday, January 12th, shortly after 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Welcome on back here for our afternoon meeting. Great to see Norman, Gino, Mark, the three of you, I think, run the ECOR trade. We'll get to that in a bit. Great to see my Italian friend, Andrea. Great to see Michael, Ray, Bruno, Lawrence, and everybody else joining us here live inside Cyber Group. Great to see everybody. And hey, if you're joining us once again on social media, Facebook Live or YouTube, same to be said. Welcome on back for everyone here. So let's hop right into it. I had this OPFI on the screen to begin. I had that up prior to us beginning, but actually heading into this meeting, it's starting to make a bit of a pullback. I don't know if this will look to break higher later on. I was just going through my Benzinga scans, and I came back to my desk actually just around 2:15. So I called it out pretty quickly. It hasn't done much since. If it ends up showing more signs of life later on, I wouldn't mind adding it to our watch list. But otherwise, we had a pretty decent day today. So much so I ended up finishing up trading right around like 11:15. That was it. Just figured that's it. Just step away. It was just in the sense of a clean morning. Just some good opportunities that were out there. Nothing really in the sense of a giant run, giant move outside of one stock. One stock. Let's start off with that one stock, the Vine trade, VINE. So Vine, actually, my gainers list pretty funky right now. Give me a sec. I had that up there just because I was going through some stuff for a slideshow that I'm doing. Now with Vine though, it's up 23% now, but this stock, of course, as you could see, after the market opened up, it practically made the same exact type of run up that it made going into the early afternoon yesterday, right? So pretty unexpected because there wasn't really any sort of pre-market activity early on this morning. Next to no activity in the after hours, and then nothing from pre-market. So I guess it's one of those fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me deals, right? I'm so surprised that this ended up making the pop that it made. I thought I'd be chasing it, kind of like yesterday. And with that, I ended up missing personally. I'm just speaking for myself. I missed out on this entire trade myself. I thought there would be a pullback and maybe a higher low from there and a slingshot from that point. This thing just kept going. Pretty insane. So I know a bunch of us ended up jumping in. They didn't make the full $1 or $2 move, but a couple of us ended up getting in for a decent chunk of change, 75 to 80, 90 cents a pop. So on this trade, at least, the question is, the more it goes up, like I was originally thinking, at what point does this begin to pull back? At what point does this begin to make the same drop off that it made yesterday afternoon, much like it made the same run up from yesterday afternoon? So, simply to say, if it's not going to break any higher, then that's when you begin to anticipate the sell-off, the pullback. And that came in right after 10:15 Eastern time, where it failed to break out what appears to be off of 950. Well, from there, came right back down. Never a good sign. Perhaps it could build a higher low from that point and go. But once that happens, that's where you have to start thinking for the big pullback like you're seeing right now. So this stock took its sweet time. It dropped off pretty sharply at first afterwards, but then from there fell within a bit of a range. And now at this point, beginning to break down a lot lower. So, this Vine stock, it treated us pretty nicely 2 days in a row, surprisingly there. But, for right now, at least, I'm not too particular about it. Watch, we'll probably finish up this meeting. We'll be back up to 8. If that's the case, then we'll add it to our list. But otherwise, the Vine stock was a nice one, at least from early on this morning. A couple of other stocks I do want to jump to, albeit they didn't make a great move after the open, but stocks that I talked about from the morning watch list, at least that I wanted to at least go over here. IMRN. This does not look like a good chart at all. It does not look like a great trade at all. But this goes back to what we talk about throughout our curriculum, especially within the phase 2 stock course back, 2 weeks ago, you folks saw me, or a week ago, you folks saw me do this in the phase 3 class. All about preparation. It's all about preparing your levels in advance before the market even opens up. Just to say this, once this ended up making a false breakout from $4 within the first 2 minutes, we knew what was going to happen. We knew this would drop back down and make a lower low and drop down to the next support level at 350. Well, at 350, it actually held pretty nicely and led to a nice little trade at first. Talking about the late morning even here at this point, this is actually a pretty decent trade if you're prepared to take it right off the 50-cent level there once it broke under and then back over that price right here. But that didn't give you too much, unfortunately. And you don't want to hold your breath waiting for more, because otherwise it's now making lower highs and pulling back down to that same 350. So, hey, this one wasn't looking good out the gate, right after the market opened up. but it actually led to a nice little late morning, early afternoon trade there off 350. Unfortunately, the same is to be said on the IMMX stock, where it actually made also a decent move off of its own 650 level, ended up chopping around 7, and once it failed to break higher off its opening print, we ended up seeing this get crushed, slammed right back down, and from there, ended up making a nice little bounce, you could say, off the 650 level, bottomed out at 640, but under and over 650, moved up nicely for about 40 cents. But again, heading into the early afternoon for a stock that already popped and dropped throughout the morning and already traded as much volume as this thing did. I mean, here in the afternoon, during this meeting, you always hear me talk about the second wind type of move. Well, that was the second win type of move. That was it right there from 650. Very small second win type of play, but ended up bouncing up for about 40 cents. Right back down it goes. So for the afternoon here, not as particular about this one as well. We did have a couple of other stocks like the BJDX and OCGN and PIK. We'll get to that in a bit. Let's start right from the top, though. Otherwise, there was a stock that we were doing pretty well on heading into this afternoon meeting, and that was the top percent gainer right now in ECOR. I saw Gino and Mark, a couple of our students here live, picking up 8-9 cents a pop, and for a cheap like that's below $1. We normally don't trade these stocks to start. We would once we happen to see some good activity, and this led us to a really nice trade. So to make 8 or 9 cents on this type of stock, I consider that basically a home run. I don't know about you. In the grand scheme of things, 8 or 9 cents on a stock like DWAC. Whoops, give me a quick sec. 8 or 9 cents on a stock like DWAC, that's like nothing. That's like a scratch trade. It's not impressive. I wouldn't be impressed with myself getting 8 or 9 cents on this stock. On ECOR, that's a hell of a catch. Really nice job for Mark and Gino, who picked up that 8 or 9 cents. Right now, albeit shaking off the high now, still kind of close to the highs, much closer to the highs than it is the lows. But again, we're not as particular about trading these stocks below $1 because more often than not, they don't really make as concise or clear of a move. So I feel like this is as much as we'll get on this trade. Again, I'll come back to this at the end if we need to. If it ends up, making a big pop and shutting me up pretty quickly, then I will add it to our list. But let's see what else is out there. Otherwise, IMRN we talked about, Vine we talked about. We'll skip over those two for the meantime. I'll call this FATH. FATH, FATH, Fathom, FATH. Ended up making a nice pop upon the market opening up right away at the opening bell. Did this get halted? And then from there, when it reopened up, was chopping around a bit, but then ended up making a new high, as you could see, prior to 10 a.m. Eastern. But, this is, again, what I told you folks inside Cyber Group earlier today. The more stock gets halted on the way up, it's going to get halted on the way down. And if it doesn't get halted down, God bless, if it doesn't get halted on the way down, usually for the amount of times it gets halted up, once we see a big shake and support break, much more often than not, it's going to continue to drop off. So, we had a couple of wacky stocks from late last week, early this week. Not every one of these stocks is going to play out like that, where it ended up actually snapping right back up on higher. So, off the second halt, it ended up popping, it ended up dropping. That was a wrap. So game over for this FATH trade. We'll call it FATH. All right, so we'll keep it going. VAX, VAXX. I wonder what this company does. Ended up making a nice pop earlier today, but kind of a spotty chart showing lower highs right now. So we'll pass on it. Pass on this too. You know why. All right, BTCS. This is actually a company affiliated with Bitcoin or blockchain technology, at least. I don't know if it's affiliated specific to Bitcoin mining. We'll talk about Bitcoin coming up later on this meeting, folks. I'll give you the quick answer right now. I bought last night. A tiny bit, not a whole lot. I wish I bought more, but I ended up using some of those funds off 44,500. So I still bought a little bit. Getting a little bit of a push up right now. BTCS, Bitcoin affiliated stock here, ended up making a good push at the market open, ended up making a higher high later on into 11 o'clock Eastern time as it topped off at 750. Right now, though, again, same to be said, just trailing back down pretty nicely right now off the highs. So for the afternoon, I'm going to pass on this stock as a Bitcoin stock, though. If we happen to see a jolt back up, over the next few weeks or month, however long it may be, keep this BTCS in mind as a good side list stock that can move with Bitcoin. Riot, Mara, Bitfarms, BTBT, now BTCS. So keep this one in mind, perhaps just side list. IMMX, this one we already talked about. Boyle is an ETF. We skip over that. NXTD. There we go. Nice pop here so far. I haven't checked this one out yet so far today. So actually a pretty nice surprise to myself. Definitely going to put this on our list. Needless to be said. NXTD. All right, cool. Let's just check quickly. A, the order book. B, the daily chart. Not really much showing overhead here. Just kind of a consistency of orders that are out there between 378. We had 4 just a moment ago, although that order, I mean, it didn't get pulled. 44, 4,500 shares, 61 here, 398. No clear iceberg showing on the offer just yet. That would lead me to assume that the whole number level at 4 is the bigger level to watch. Looks like this stock last week even ended up making a nice pop up to where it hit a high of 378, which is pretty much where it's at right now. So it's actually testing last week's high as a potential resistance. For right now, though, we'll see where it goes. It doesn't seem like otherwise, like there's any clear-cut historical level. If I can just kind of shoot from the hip, perhaps it could be this year, like a 450-ish, maybe a 455-ish. That could be a pretty strong historical level, if anything. And that's it otherwise. So NXTD looking pretty good. Another Bitcoin stock, actually, BBIG to a great degree. Wow, look at this pop right now. Holy smokes, this thing's going. All right. So let's just check it out. I don't know if this is all Bitcoin stocks. We're not going to do Bitcoin just yet, but yeah, Mara's just flat here. So I assume it's not Bitcoin specific, but it's more BBIG specific itself here. So I don't know the news out on BBIG, but we've traded the stock on and off over the last 6 months. More on than off at first. And then as you can see on the daily chart, probably going back into early to mid-October after it hit that last peak. Came right back down. It only continued to drop, but it became a slower trade. It became something that we weren't interested in day trading, really. So I'll say it here, as I always say for a former runner. If this BBIG trade can make a fraction of the type of run that it made back in, late August, early September, whenever that was there from the daily chart, then that's all I'm shooting for. That's my expectations. I'm not looking for a whole run up back up to 10 or 8 or 12. If I can get just a fraction of that type of run up that we had back in September, God bless, I'll take it. So BBIG easily definitely going to put this on our list. Resistance, you would assume at 32,000 share order on the ask, 295 also there as well. All right, got a couple good stocks to start off our list here, folks. Couple good stocks. Keep it going, though. Keep it moving. PL, interesting. Planet Labs. We ended up seeing this make a nice pop going into yesterday afternoon, but a lot more so today, obviously. Ended up making a good slingshot shortly, not after the open, but going into the mid-morning as it finally broke higher from 620. Ended up running up beautifully, nearly a buck higher. It is shortable. It is trading a lot of volume per minute still at this time of the day, about 33,000 shares. You know what? I don't mind putting this one on our list here. It's the PL trade. We'll see if this could build a higher low, perhaps off of 650 or just support in general off of 650. Maybe a pop back up from there. But otherwise, we'll see. Maybe it makes a lower high, comes back down, and it could be a short. We'll see what happens on this PL trade. Don't mind slipping this on our list here for right now. See what time it is, 2:43 the time right now, folks. I feel like we're making good use of time, but let's just kind of keep it moving. We have DWAC, we have PHUN, which are up today. Perhaps we'll get to that coming up. Just kind of skimming through right now, seeing any other familiar names here that we've traded in the past, like Open, former runner, flat right now. BTU, more of a swing trade recently. This was going back into September, October time. Not really as much of a day trade, but it's kind of near the highs. It's having a good day altogether. Want to see if there's anything looking a bit sharper like the BBIG was looking just before. Fold. It's at the highs, but this is no BBIG here. It's not making that type of volatile pop or move up. You could say not yet, but the way this looks, it's like watching the grass grow here. So I don't know. I'm going to pass on it here. QTT. I feel like we called this out at least from the open. Ended up making a nice little pop, but that was it. All right, and folks, I think that's just about it on the gainers side. Market's a little wonky today, albeit up a bit off the CPI numbers. It pulled back after the open a bit, going into 10 o'clock. So if there's anything else that looks good on the way up, just type it in the chat board early. That goes for all of us inside Cyber Group, all of us on social media, YouTube or Facebook Live joining me here this afternoon. Let me just hop over to the losers list for right now. Cold, another ETF. Just want to look at it. Down big today. We're not going to really trade ETFs because you can't apply level 3 to ETFs. You could rarely, I should say. So if you've been trying, you've probably been having a hard time. Yeah, Pets back on the losers list here once again today. I was hopeful for some sort of squeeze. I say it to you folks. I'll even say it to myself here more than saying it to you. You don't want to hold your breath waiting for this type of dead cat bounce because although more often than not we tend to get it at some point, I also could show a stock that has never bounced back up, and that would be one called ARDX. It took about 6 months for this to make some sort of up move, but it failed to even try and fill the gap, and then right back down it goes. So pass on this, right? It's just to say, at least otherwise, for the pet stock, we're definitely hopeful for this to make some sort of dead cat bounce retracement to where it can make like a 30-40% move back up. We don't know when that's going to be, folks. Like, that's not a swing trade. This is solely a day trade recommendation, if anything. And I was calling this out at the open off of 61 cents. That was the one price level that I was more interested in following the stock after it at least dropped off from the open. I had a big line on my chart for my pre-market preparation. And although that level held at first, it was looking good. You know what happened after? It came back down. So I made 1 penny on this stock, on a larger share size, mind you, but still, it's just to say, if it's not breaking higher, only one other way the stock is going to go. So maybe this even drops as low as 50 cents, or to 50 cents, that is, and then bounces. Who knows? We'll check back in tomorrow. We'll see. But otherwise, we'll pass for this afternoon. Let's see, folks. Otherwise, market, albeit making lower highs, kind of a bit wonky here in this range for right now. There's not a whole lot that's really catching my eye on the loser side of things. A lot of stocks hard to borrow. No other familiar names here that really stand out. So I'll toss it to you folks here. Actually, really quick, I'll look at TBPH. TBPH going into coming off the afternoon meeting yesterday. It was more heading into like 3:30 Eastern time in the afternoon yesterday. We had called out TBPH here as a short. This thing fell off like a cliff. This thing ended up diving off all the way down to 11 where it had closed. And again, a simple charting strategy is, for stocks that close near the highs, oftentimes we tend to see it open up a bit higher. Maybe it drops off after the market opens next day, but oftentimes it opens up higher a bit pre-market. For a stock that closes at the lows of the day, well, vice versa. So, needless to be said, the stock ended up opening up, dropping off right away once again, pretty much continuing this straight trend line on the way down. And actually, as we speak, it's starting to wiggle back down, trying to slowly drop back down. It actually made just a 15-cent, near 20-cent move over the last 18 minutes. That's pretty good. That's not bad at all, folks. TBPH, put on our list. There we go. All right, but otherwise, I think that's just about it. So if you have anything else for me, up, down, left, right, more than 5%, just type it in the chat board here and just let me know. From Buster on YouTube joining us today. Welcome aboard, Buster. He's saying ZOM zooming. Well, there's ZM and then there's ZOM. This is ZOM. It is definitely zooming. So not as particular about trading a stock below $1 because it doesn't normally provide us the type of volatility that we would really want to trade inside Cyber Group. Well, the way this looks so far, it's hard for us to not focus on this trade. Hey, it's not an OTC stock. It's not a bulletin board stock. It's listed on the Amex. So, yes, the liquidity, well, it seems like super thin right here. Super, super thin. Let's do a little right click. Let's do a little format. Oh, whoops, wrong one. Let's do a little right click here. Let's do a little format. There we go. That looks a little bit better. Maybe you could even separate it by the half penny. But otherwise, though, this makes it just a little bit easier to try and anticipate potential price levels holding. So 35 clearly held as a level on the chart there, Buster. Right now, there's a 401,000 share order on the bid sitting, roughly around that 35-cent price. It may even be better to split this up by the half penny. It is pushing up quite nicely for right now. And actually, one other thing, Buster, that is catching my eye in a good way. I think I am going to slip this on our list here. Hopefully it pops. If it doesn't, so be it. But the thing that's catching my eye is back to begin this past year in 2021. This ran from like 36 cents, even lower, all the way to over 250. We've seen the stock make a really nice run before. So for as much as it came back down, if this can make a fraction of that type of run up again, if it's 50 over a series of days, God bless, that would be a home run in this case, right? So just keep that in mind. I'll put this on our list kind of more towards the bottom, but definitely a good call for right now, Buster. Good shout. I like it. From Udea asking about the BTU stock again. So BTU I wasn't as keen about just because it's like kind of just a grinder of a trade right now. We've seen the stock move faster and better and trade a lot more volume per minute compared to what it's doing right now. For anyone that likes this stock and has it on their side list, don't think that I'm a hater. Don't think that I'm a hater as if you can't make money on this stock. I'm sure you can. But in terms of opportunity cost, we have 70 minutes before the end of the day, and NXTD and BBIG are exploding. Which one are we more focused on? Scott says Boyle looks strong at the high of the day. Boyle is an ETF. Keep that in mind, Scott. You cannot apply level 3 to an ETF or ETN. I don't want to say can't, but rarely can you. It's just not worth the time. So if you have other indicators that lead you to trade an ETF extremely well yourself, and if you have proven history on that yourself, go for it. But otherwise, going to pass as an ETF. All right, folks. Lastly, I'll wrap up with a tiny bit of Bitcoin. So I told you I ended up buying yesterday afternoon, more into the evening. But actually, let me just jump back to the daily chart, and I'll explain why I did. So we ended up seeing this begin to pull back as we last talked about it on Monday, as it was teeter-tottering around the 500 EMA right here. And at the time, I was saying, do not be surprised if this ends up consolidating around there, breaking under it a bit. And if it could do that and hold strength at that point, then I'd be interested in buying. And if it wasn't from there, I wouldn't have minded going up further to pay higher for more confirmation. But I'm looking on Twitter for the folks I follow on Twitter and for the research they do. And I'm looking at this 500 EMA and I'm just like, you know what? If I get in from 41 a little bit here, and if I add a little bit, I get some more skin in the game, right? Better to at least add right there than to wait and then to see it make some sort of move that I'm not expecting. So I wish I added more. I only slipped in an extra like $500. I've been doing like $1,000 drops the whole time through. But just to say, I ended up buying a little bit right off of 41. Feel good with the entry. But I wish I did wait from the end of last week. You can never be right 100% of the time. I always like to say I never try and get everything correct. We just try and plan ahead. So even back from a few weeks ago when it was at 52, 51, I was saying, watch out. This is a false break. It's going to drop back down. I feel it. All right, better to say that than to lead you on at 51, right? And I was hoping for 44 or 44.5 to be that true bounce, to not have it break lower. But once it did, that's where we have to improvise and try and work with it and try and follow it from that point. So that's where I was saying the 500 EMA on the daily chart, and we'll kind of see how it reacts from that point. So I'm going to plan on adding more as this goes on, or should we happen to see higher lows build. Otherwise, though, the other altcoin that I had mentioned to you about a week ago, Phantom. This is Phantom since the bounce. This is, I'm sorry, right here. Pardon me. This is Phantom since the big shake, FTM. I would say this is pretty damn strong of an altcoin just to have this extreme retracement back up to nearly its all-time high. I'm very confident about this move. Seeing this move makes me even more confident than I already was. So just to let you folks know. Alrighty, so that's all I got for you today in crypto land. I don't like going through all of the different coins. If you do have coins that you would want me to go over, I haven't received any requests on them aside from Ethereum from last week and perhaps Solana. If you have any questions or requests on coins, let me know. If we have enough time, I'll be more than happy to go over it with you folks. But otherwise, I think that's just about it for me altogether, let alone from crypto. I think that's it from Stockland too. There's not much else within the market that we haven't really focused on yet, right? We got NXTD pushing. The PIK is the only other one I'm going to look at here, folks. I saw it make like a little bit of a move up over the last 5 minutes, and yeah, it is trying to, but it's just such a choppy chart right now. Right now, I'm going to pass. If this makes some sort of freak move up, then we'll try and react at that point, right? I like to phrase it that way, just because I don't want you. I don't want students here to be stuck watching a stock that much more often than not doesn't give them the opportunity that they're looking for, right? The more that you're watching the wrong stock, the more that you get frustrated trying to take the good trade on that position when there's just no good position to take at all. All right. And then again, hey, if we're wrong with that assumption, if this does make a pop coming up here, then we'll try and follow it from that point. All right, folks. But for the meantime, I really like this list. We got 5 stocks in total to work with right now for the afternoon. If there's anything else that we call out, unless if it makes that unexpected big pop or drop, then I would say let's wait till like 3:15, 3:30 Eastern time, where we'll look to kind of rescan the market a lot more, seriously at that point. All right, so for Norman, for Grant, for Michael, for Scott, for Leda, and for everybody else here live inside the trading room, I'll be back on the mic right at 3:30 Eastern time, folks, going into the close. Take care.